There we are. What's up, gang? Andrew Cooper here, aka Coop a Fiasco on Twitter. Coop, there it is on Reddit. We're here, Fantasy Alarm, Better Sports Network, sponsored by FFPC, and we're doing what we do every Monday, man. We're breaking down the important usage from this week. As usual, I want to talk to you real quick up front about just what's going on, my thoughts. And today, the important thing is trust. We're going into fantasy playoffs here. It's all about trust. People get so wrapped up in best ball and spike weeks and winning a gazillion dollars on DFS that they forget that traditional fantasy football, your hometown league, 12 of your buddies, the trophy's more important than the money. In those leagues, you need to put together 3 straight weeks with guys you can trust. Of course, with injuries and stuff, you might have to fill in 1 week, but bye weeks are going to be done here. We need to focus on who we can trust, because what ends up happening a lot of times, like the biggest example, 2011 Robert Tonyan, you have guys that are, they're relying on spike weeks, they're relying on touchdowns, and what happens when that doesn't happen? Boom, you get the rug pulled out from under you. Robert Tonyan, perfect example, scored 11 touchdowns that year, was technically a tight end one, but it was all touchdowns. And when championship week came, he caught 1 pass. It wasn't a touchdown. And what happened? He pulled your pants down in front of all your friends, right? So you have to be very careful. I've been preaching this with certain players, guys like Taysom Hill, that, of course, he scored the touchdown this week, but he's got 5 games this year with essentially 4 or fewer points. So you got to be very, very careful. Today, we're going to focus on that. We're going to focus on the guys that you can actually trust to start in your fantasy football league. And if you look around and say, I can't trust this guy, you might as well drop him. You might as well drop him for handcuffs for, say, you have CMC, maybe Elijah Mitchell, right? You might as well not even hold the guys that aren't going to be able to be trustworthy for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks, technically, because we have 1 more week before fantasy playoffs start. So thank you guys for hanging out. Thanks for popping in, jumping in the chat. Feel free to get any questions in. But what we're going to do, like always, is go through. Look, I Coop in the chat. Yeah, and the Rams pulled it out, man. The Rams keep scrapping. And I'll tell you what, I watched the Rams win a Super Bowl, and the whole time I said to myself, no way is this going to work. No way can they keep just throwing the ball to Cooper Kupp every single game and not get stopped. And guess what? They did it all the way through and won the Super Bowl. So with Cooper Kupp, Matt Stafford, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, I don't care who else they have, they can get it done. I'm just saying, watch out for the Rams, man. Don't let the Rams get hot. Albert, what's up, man? Thank you guys for popping in. Definitely, again, throw questions in, but we're going to go through and we're going to hit on every single team in alphabetical order by city. I'm going to give you the important usage metrics. I'm going to tell you who we can trust, who we can't trust, and we'll get geared up and we'll win our leagues, right? Today is the important breakdown of what we saw yesterday so that we can move forward. Let's compartmentalize it, absorb it all, get all that good information in, enjoy Monday Night Football, and then set up what could be some of our final waiver ads and plays to get set up for the playoffs, man. Trust me, the yin and yang tight end article coming out on Tuesday, it's going to look a lot different than the way it usually looks because we're focusing almost exclusively on matchups down the stretch. Anthony, Drew, Scanny, what's up, guys? Can we skip the Saints? Do you want to talk about Jordan Love? We're going to talk about it all, man. No skipping any teams. Sometimes we do kind of skip teams. I mean, I guess a team like Washington where they just got blown out and backups were thrown in, you can skip those games. But now we got to talk about it all, brother. So why don't we get started right now? Arizona Cardinals, and we got to talk about the big dog, Trey McBride, man. I was a little worried. That, he had the groin injury all week. The Steelers are one of the toughest matchups for tight ends. Didn't matter. This guy's the focal point of the offense. Got denied on a touchdown that I thought was a questionable call. Comes right back and scores anyway. This guy cannot be stopped, man. Trey McBride, you got to be feeling great about him. The one thing, you got to have a fill-in for this week for your bye week, right? So nobody in their right mind would drop Trey McBride right now. And even when I was worried about him this week, I had him ranked at tight end 4, but you got to fill in. We'll help you with that. But yeah, Trey McBride down the stretch, that's a guy we can trust, right? Still no Michael Wilson and Zach Pascal for wide receivers. So we saw Greg Dortch. We saw Hollywood Brown. We saw Rondale Moore. Hollywood left the game with a heel injury. So keep an eye out for that. I think eventually one of Mike Wilson or Zach Pascal will come back. Those guys are all 6 feet tall. One of them is going to be the split end. But, I mean, hey, if Hollywood's going to be out, one of Rondale Moore or Greg Dortch could potentially be viable in deeper leagues, right? But for now, to be honest, when talking about trust, I trust Trey McBride. I, to some degree, trust Kyler Murray in good matchups. But Hard to trust these other guys. One guy I do trust, though, James Conner, 51 of 67 snaps. I was a little bit worried Michael Carter could carve out a pass roll. Didn't really happen, right? They won this week, so it was a positive game script. So, yeah, and we're feeling good. And Clint, I'm telling you right now, I got Trey in a lot of dyno leagues. My dyno philosophy a lot of times is just always try to win. Like I'm always playing to win. I feel like I can put together good teams, find players in a couple and I trade away my picks a lot of times. Like I traded away my first round pick for Cooper Kupp in my most important league. But even if you just have, a late first because your team's good or second round picks or whatever, you can put it together, man. I was getting Sam Laporta in second round leagues. I was getting Devon Achane with my last picks. It's crazy to look at that league, my biggest league, and I'm sitting there with Laporta and Achane, and I'm looking at everybody else's rookies. I'm like, why are you guys tanking? Like, why are you losing on purpose and just to do coin flips in the rookie draft with me, or we're doing it together? And then you know what? I'm hitting on a lot of these coins too. So you got to be feeling real good about having Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid, all these young guys. I still feel okay about Kyle Pitts long term. And Brock Bowers is going to come out this year and he'll continue the tight end revolution. So tight ends are back, baby. Go Clinton. You crushed it, dude. Dino, baby. Let's go. Next team, Atlanta Falcons. We got to get through all the games before 2 o'clock today. And I'd say we got to because we have Britt Flynn coming up next. Britt's Blitz is back on Mondays and Fridays. It's a beautiful thing, but it means that we can't do hour and a half psychotic shows like there was a brief period where we were just doing crazy shows and just talking for as long as we want about whatever we want. Can't do that anymore. So we got to stay on pace. Second team here, Atlanta Falcons, right? This week, I'll tell you what, the big story from here is that this team actually did utilize the guys we want them to utilize. Number one there, Kyle Pitts ran 28 of 31 routes, and he got a near 30% target share, like 29% and change. That is the best we have seen for Kyle Pitts. At this very moment, can we trust him? No. He only caught 4 of 8 targets. 8 targets is nice, but we also can't really trust this team to throw even 30 times a game. But I will say this, if he comes out, gets similar usage next week, similar targets next week, I mean, maybe, because tight end's ugly. So I'd go out and make sure, if you have a bench spot and he's been floating around on waivers, toss him in there, man, because you never know. Things can change down the stretch. Ideologies change. I mean, Bijan's been seeing a lot more work lately, too. Bijan played 51 snaps, only 11 for Tyler Algier, only 11. He still got 8 carries. Defense is out there. I mean, this is crazy to me. This guy only plays 11 snaps, gets the ball in 8 of them. If you see Tyler Algier go in the game, everyone's going to be looking around pointing like, okay, that guy's getting the ball. Defensive coordinators, I mean, the job's easy, right? It seems foolish to do it that way, but hey, you know what? Maybe they're setting up some elaborate plan where it's like every once in a while, maybe they won't give him the ball, but they've been setting it up all year and they haven't utilized it yet. So we'll have to see when the big play action comes with Tyler Algier where he goes in the game and doesn't actually get the football, but we've been waiting for it. Jonnu Smith only ran 15 of 31 snaps. That's definitively a guy you cannot trust. Some people were joking saying, oh yeah, Jonnu over Kyle Pitts. Some people were seriously saying it. I was never on board with that, man. Kyle Pitts, as long as they're running similar routes, which now they're not, Kyle Pitts is just a better player. He's capable of bigger and better things, so he's always going to be ranked ahead of Jonnu Smith for me now and forever. As far as wide receivers go, it's just Drake London. He played 30 of 30. He ran 30 of 31 routes. Next highest guy, Van Jefferson, only ran 19, got 0 targets. Of the other wide receivers, they combined for 1 target that went to Daryl Hodge. So you can hardly even trust Drake London. You definitely can't trust the other guys. Next team, Baltimore Ravens were on bye this week, so they'll be back. Buffalo Bills also on bye. Very interested to see what happens with Dawson Knox, right? I want to see where the snaps come from when he gets back. We usually don't talk about teams on bye, but I just want to say with this particular one, if Dalton Knox is back, the snaps need to come from somewhere. He's going to play. He's going to get probably all of Quentin Morris's snaps, which we don't care about. He's a blocking tight end. And then he's going to get snaps from somewhere. They're not going to come from Diggs. They're almost certainly not going to come from Gabriel Davis. They don't come from the running back. So the 2 options are really Khalil Shakir and, I mean, you'll probably get some, Trent Sherfield will probably go back to the bench to some degree, but one of Khalil Shakir and or Dalton Kincaid will lose snaps. I'm praying it's not Dalton Kincaid, but we'll just have to see. I'm hoping that you can't put this guy back in the bottle and that he's a feature of the offense. And that's what I believe. That's how I have it ranked, but we have to consider that possibility. So humongous week this week for the Bills and the pass catchers over there. Carolina Panthers, next team up. big change of the guard because the coaches were gone. We did see some changes here. They did cover the spread, which historically teams that fire the coach, it happens, man. Another win for Howard Bender on that, depending where you got the spread. But yeah, from what I saw, they covered for the most part where it was set. So here's what we saw for changes with the new coaching staff. DJ Chark did even with Terrace Marshall out, DJ Chark only played half the snaps. In fact, Mike Straken played 31 to 29 for him, and Amir Smith Marset played some. And so that is not good news for DJ Chark. Adam Thielen and Jonathan Mingo played the full game, but Mingo got 10 looks to 6 for Thielen. Maybe it was a concerted effort. Maybe that's just how it shook out, but looks like they're checking out what the young guys can do. And it makes a lot of sense, honestly. This team, I know they have no incentive to tank really because they don't have a first round pick, but they're not going to win this year. They're not making the playoffs, obviously, the worst team in the league right now. So they might as well see what they have. We've seen teams do this before. The Dolphins did it when they were tanking for Tua, is they do live tryouts. So they come out this week and say, hey, who's going to be part of this team moving forward? Let's see what Mike can do, Mike Straken. Let's see what Amir Smith Marset can do. Let's see what Terrace Marshall can do when he gets back. You see, this week, Steven Sullivan and Ian Thomas out there at tight end. Why not? And of course, the other big one was Chuba Hubbard got 47 snaps to only 23 for Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders was a Deuce Staley guy. They brought him in because they thought they were going to compete this year, and clearly he's way on the back burner now behind Chuba Hubbard. One of the things I was hugely wrong about was Miles Sanders. I bought into some degree that this team was going to try to compete. They didn't have a first-round pick, and that Miles Sanders and Adam Thielen were going to be a big part of that. Thielen was, but Miles Sanders, man, got banged up, found his way in the doghouse, and now he's just completely phased out. So sorry about that. Anyone that drafted Miles Sanders, put that blame on me. I really thought he had a possibility to be a good player and just not involved, man. Not involved. Next team, Chicago Bears on bye. After that, Cincinnati Bengals play tonight. So going through alphabetical order, a lot of these teams, nothing to really talk about just yet. Cleveland Browns, 71 overall snaps, and Amari Cooper left with a concussion. So hard to judge for sure how things would have shaken out. He only played 23 of 71 snaps before he left. When he did leave, it was Cedric Tillman. Elijah Moore, who usually plays a lot of slot, moved to the outside opposite Tillman, and then David Bell came in to play slot. So if Amari Cooper is going to miss time, that's what you're going to get. Clearly, Joe Flacco liked Elijah Moore. He didn't even mind. He was also just chucking it up at times, too, to Cedric Tillman. Threw some bad interceptions, but at least he's taking shots. Could be interesting for DFS for Tillman. David Bell, I'm not really interested in. And anyone that watched that game knows that he did not really want to throw it to David Njoku. I mean, Njoku did end up with 6 targets technically. Harrison Bryant had 4 and scored the touchdown, but, man, Flacco was looking downfield. We want DTR back. DTR and PJ Walker, those are the guys that like dumping it down. So not good news for David Njoku with Joe Flacco. We're going to have to move him down. Again, we're talking about trust. I actually did trust him with the backups. With the backups, he was averaging 8.6 targets a game. With Deshaun Watson, he was averaging 5.2 because Watson also likes pushing it down the field. With big arm Flacco, if he doesn't want to push the ball, if he doesn't want to dump it down, then how are we going to trust the guy that runs the low A-dot routes? So pretty brutal there. The split with the running backs, Jerome Ford played 36 snaps. Kareem Hunt played 25. Ford got more pass work. Hunt got more carries, 12 to 9. So we got to dig a little more into that shakeup, but we've talked about this every week, that very highly unpredictable, this team, on what they want to do, when they're willing to use Kareem Hunt at the goal line, when they want to use Jerome Ford there. It's kind of all over the place. We like predictability. Honestly, ideally, we would like to have one guy get all the carries and all the receptions. Christian McCaffrey, right? That's what you want. The next best thing is to have a split that we can understand, right? Where we can look at Washington and say, okay, if Washington's winning, it's going to be Brian Robinson. If they're losing, maybe it'll be Antonio Gibson. But we can understand that. With this Browns setup, it's kind of difficult to understand. They're all over the place. Sometimes they'll use Jerome Ford like the whole game, and then they'll use Kareem Hunt because he's fresh. Sometimes Jerome Ford gets a goal line. Sometimes Kareem Hunt does. Sometimes Kareem Hunt, who has historically been a pass-catching back, gets that work. This week it was Jerome Ford, and Hunt got more carries. That's the last thing we want, is some sort of system like that. I guess it's the second to last thing we want, because The very last split we want is what Minnesota does, which is an absolute nightmare for fantasy football. The coach came out and said that the carries in the game are decided based on who has a better practice during the week, information that we're not privy to and that they'll never tell us about. They'll never come out and say, hey, heads up, we're going to give more carries to, the Bears actually that do that, not the Vikings. It's the Bears. They basically said, like, Roshan got more carries because he had a better practice this week. They're never going to say, hey, Khalil Herbert had a better practice, so he's going to have a good week this week. So that is the worst situation. But second worst is just they, not having any idea how it works, which is what you get with the Browns. Anyway, Dallas Cowboys, 89 snaps. This game was on Thursday, so we already kind of talked about it, but CeeDee Lamb, stud. Brandon Cooks played 80 snaps of 89. So, even though he only got 4 targets, he did score. And then Michael Gallup and Jalen Tolbert split snaps. Can't trust either of those guys. Have to be a crazy deep league to trust guys that are splitting snaps and only each got 1 target. So don't worry about those guys. Jake Ferguson, pretty solid game. They did play 89 offensive snaps. To put that in perspective, the average is 65. So this is well above what you can expect. So, Jake Ferguson, 7 targets, nice, but CeeDee Lamb got 17. So we got to put it in perspective of, 47 dropbacks for this team. But Jake Ferguson still, he's fine. You use him in the matchups where you have to. Hopefully you also paired him and went yin and yang like we talked about. And then you also have Sam Laporta or Dalton Kincaid or Trey McBride, and you have a little more upside. But, Ferguson's fine. He just is he's a little touchdown dependent. And then running back, Tony Pollard played 69 snaps. So you're not going to get that much better than that. And the Cowboys have a pretty brutal schedule. I'm not going to lie. They're playing the Eagles this week. They play the Bills. They play the Dolphins. They play the Lions. So Tony Pollard, man, I trust him because of, he got 20 carries. He gets most of the carries, runs most of the routes. But, the schedule is not great. So unless your team's an absolute wagon, though, that's the guy you're starting. So what are you going to do? Denver Broncos, 60 snaps. Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, the only guys that play the full game. So don't worry about Lil Jordan Humphrey, Marvin Mims. Like, it's not going to happen for Marvin Mims if it hasn't happened yet. They need injuries. So, we got to think about what happens. If Jerry Jeudy goes down, now maybe we use Marvin Mims. If Cortland Sutton goes down, Lil Jordan Humphrey is 6'4", 225. So he probably takes over that role. If that doesn't happen, though, we don't care. So it's Cortland Sutton, it's Jerry Jeudy. Cortland Sutton gets an end zone target every game. And he's got, 8 touchdowns in 11 games or 9 in 12 or whatever it is now. And he's got 6 touchdowns in the last 7 games. Like, Cortland Sutton is dialed in that area. It is a little scary that most of his production is touchdown related. But, at this stage, it's hard to go away from a guy like that. So Sutton's in. Jeudy, kind of out for me. Like, only 4 targets again. He's just not really doing it with Russell Wilson. Tight end, we got nothing because we don't have Greg Dulcich. Lucas Kroll led the team in snaps. Kroll, the Warrior King, led the team in routes run with 20. Adam Trotman ran 16, but Kroll only got 1 target. So, maybe a DFS dart throw, Lucas Kroll, but I don't know. And the weird thing with him is that they used him 1 game, and then they tried another guy, Nate Adkins, the next game, and had Kroll as a healthy inactive. And then this week they brought him back and tried him out again. So next week, once again, we don't even know, right? You don't even know how viable this guy can be even in DFS. So, but maybe a deep dart throw. Javonte Williams, good news here. This is a guy we can trust, right? Again, the theme of the show today, trust. Can we trust him? Can we not? I was a little worried a couple weeks ago when Samaje Perine and Jaleel McLaughlin ran more routes than Javonte Williams. This week, 13 carries for Javonte Williams, way ahead of everyone else, and 16 routes run, which is ahead of 10 for Perine and 5 for McLaughlin. So if he's going to get all the carries and lead the team in routes run, then that's a guy that we can put in our lineups. That's what we're doing, baby. And Joe, thanks for popping in, man. It says, always appreciate the show, Coop. Champ round around the corner. Let's go. Yeah, we're getting there, baby. So I'm doing my best to break this all down for you guys, give you 1 hour every game. That's all you got to do on Monday. Listen to this for 1 hour, and you'll just know what happened, right? Because you can't watch every single game. We have Red Zone on. You have another game on the big TV, right? You either your favorite team or maybe it's the Eagles and the 49ers. That's how most of us consume football. It's hard. You can't watch every single game. You can have every game on a whole wall of TVs, and you only have 2 eyes, dude. Like, even if you're Kim Peeks and you can read a book, 1 eye on one page, 1 on the other page, you can't watch 9 football games at once. So that's what we do here. I spent all morning sitting down saying, what the heck happened? Who got hurt? Who played these snaps? Who pass blocked? who ran routes, who, you know what I mean? And then I come here and we spend an hour and just go, here's what happened. Here's what happened. And you can absorb that. You can pair it with Kevin Tompkins's usage report that he puts up. You can pair it with the snap count article that I read on Wednesday. But 1 hour here, we hit it on the head so that we know what the heck is going on. Detroit Lions next team. Let's figure out what's going on with them. Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously superstar in your lineup. Josh Reynolds, he played 44 snaps. Jameson Williams only played 33. I don't trust Josh Reynolds. And if Jameson Williams is playing less than Josh Reynolds, I don't trust him either. He's explosive. He's kind of fun in DFS. He's obviously fun in best ball. Can't trust him. So it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's Sam Laporta, who obviously we love, a megastar, 10 targets this week. So lock him in. People were worried about him when he was getting 5 targets a game for 2 weeks, brief 2-week span. Look around. 5 targets is like, people are desperate for that. There were 3 bye-week fill-in tight ends this week. Cade Otton, Juwan Johnson, Logan Thomas, that people had to bank on with all the bye weeks, all the injuries. They combined for 0 receptions. So 5 targets in a down week for Sam Laporta, give me that. People complain about Travis Kelce having 81 yards, 90 yards the week before, a touchdown the week before that. Dude, in this environment, in this economy, you're going to complain about Travis Kelce? Give me a break. Travis Kelce's in your lineup every single week. You got to be happy to have him. So, yeah, Anthony says Juwan killed me. Yeah, I had a lot. Luckily, I have a lot of Trey McBride and Sam Laporta, but I also have leagues where I had Dalton Kincaid and I had to, lost Waller, lost Mark Andrews, whatever, and I had to start some of those guys. Juwan Otten, and Logan Thomas. Those guys have combined to play 29 games this year, and combined between all of them, they've never once had a game where they didn't catch a pass. This week, the only time we needed these guys to step up, out of all these weeks, 29 combined weeks, they've always caught a pass. Even the game where Logan Thomas got a concussion and left the game, he caught a touchdown pass. This week, they combined for 0 catches. Logan Thomas technically had a 2-point conversion, which isn't obviously a regulation catch. But my goodness, what a rug pull for the entire community at tight end this week. Crazy, man. This one I also wanted to mention, last thing on the Lions. The week before last, rare negative game script. We saw Jahmyr Gibbs played like the vast majority of snaps. Huge workload. And then this week, in a positive game script where they're winning, it's David Montgomery who plays more snaps. He plays 36 to 26 for Jahmyr Gibbs. They both ran 14 routes. Monty got 18 carries. Gibbs got 8. So we kind of now have to treat it like that. At least we know, right? But we have to look at it the same way we look at some of these other split teams to some degree, where it's like, okay, is this going to be a blowout in favor of the Lions? If that's the case, it's probably going to favor Monty. Is this going to be a tough game, or even a game where they might play from behind? That might favor Jahmyr Gibbs, or it definitely would, honestly, from what we've seen. This is the schedule. Bears this week should be big favorites, right? So knock on wood, it should be a Monty game. Broncos, Monty game. Then it goes Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings. The last Vikings game obviously being the last week of the season, so it doesn't really matter in most fantasy leagues. Vikings and Cowboys could be a little more split. Those are more games that favor Gibbs. Both these guys, the reality is we're starting these guys wherever we have them, right? You don't have enough good players out there to not start both these fellas. So I'm starting both of them. But in terms of like DFS and things like that, where we do have to split hairs, I look at it and say, okay, next couple of weeks, Monty games. David Montgomery against the Bears in a revenge game is a David Montgomery smash week coming up this week on Sunday, December 10th. Lions going to the Cowboys on New Year's Eve to play at 8:15 at night, that might be a Jahmyr Gibbs game. So keep that in mind. It is important for DFS, for FFPC, which is my favorite. Like FFPC, where you got to go and pick only one player from each team. You can't play both of them. FFPC this week will probably be using David Montgomery in the revenge game. So if you want to play with us, go over there, use promo code Coop, and they'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. I love this format. I love their playoff format. Definitely make sure you're set up with it for that with funds in the bank. I don't know how long we're going to be running this promo code, but it's available for the time being. So promo code Coop over at myffpc.com. You get 25 when you deposit 35 or more. I'll tell you right now, I'm not I'll have to run it by the guest this week, but we're almost certainly going to be using David Montgomery because I want to use him. So that's the case. Gets it up there, and we'll take a look a little bit later at my FFPC team that we made with Colby Conway on Friday, and we'll see how we did there. Coming up in a little bit, I want to hit on a couple more games first before we get into that stuff. So next team, Green Bay Packers, 64 snaps, so almost exactly average. It was Dubs on the outside. It was Christian Watson on the outside, and I talked about this concern for these slot guys, right? Like that we want them in dynasty, the pure slot guys. I said, go out, buy Jaden Reed, go out, buy Josh Downs. The problem you run into with these slot guys sometimes is that when you go two tight end sets, they come out of the game. And with Luke Musgrave out, we were hoping there wouldn't be a lot of two tight end sets, but Ben Sims played 20 snaps, right? Caught a touchdown pass. And whenever you bring Ben Sims in, you're not taking out Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft played 61 of 64 snaps. You're not taking the running back out, right? The running backs on this team combined for 64 snaps, 40 for Dylan, 20 for Taylor, 4 for James Robinson. And you have a fullback that played 9 snaps. So the guy that comes out of the game is Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed only played 30 of 64 snaps. And that's why he only got 5 targets. It's a little bit scary, these guys. So do I like Jaden Reed? Yes. Do I like him in Dynasty? Absolutely. Can we trust him down the stretch? I hope so, but you might have better options because every once in a while, these teams go jumbo sets, and this is what happened. Romeo Doubs played 52 snaps. Watson played 47, left with a hamstring. Reed played 30. All right. And I'll tell you what, if Christian Watson is out, if Christian Watson's out moving forward, that doesn't even mean because he had the hamstring, that doesn't mean Jaden Reed picks up more snaps. We saw this earlier in the year. You know who picked up those snaps? Dontavian Wicks, because he's bigger, because he's a split end, right? You're not going to put Romeo Doubs or Jaden Reed at split end. It's going to be the bigger player. So Wicks actually probably would pick up those snaps. Reed will probably pick up some targets, but again, that all depends on whether Christian Watson's out or not. But as of right now, Reed becomes tough to trust, and it stinks, but that's just the way it goes. Tucker Kraft was an all right bye-week fill-in, but he played 61 of 64 snaps, but he only ran 30 of 39 routes, so he passed block on some pass plays. I don't necessarily trust this guy. So this week, fill in, fine, but not really trusting that guy rest of the season. And then for running backs, again, A.J. Dillon at least got more pass work this week. He got 18 carries, and he looked pretty good, and he ran 18 routes, which is the key. But Patrick Taylor still ran 14. So he's not getting the full workload, but you could do worse than A.J. Dillon. At least he ran more routes than Patrick Taylor this week. Last week, Taylor ran more routes. So I'm feeling okay about A.J. Dillon. If you have to use him while Aaron Jones is out, you got to use him. But just keep in mind, he doesn't get quite all the work, even when the starter's out, which is super annoying because, we label these guys as a handcuff plus, hoping that if the starter gets hurt, now he's the guy, and it doesn't quite work that way with A.J. Dillon. Whereas if A.J. Dillon got hurt, Aaron Jones probably would get all the work because he is a great pass catching back and he's a good running back. But instead, Patrick Taylor played 20 snaps. So what are you going to do? We're splitting hairs. Houston Texans, next team, 68 snaps. Big story here, obviously, Tank Dell. And I will say I was a little too critical up front because when he got hurt, I thought it was related to the calf. So a lot of us are initially, when he's, because he didn't practice all week with a calf injury. When he got hurt, we initially were like, oh my God, like, what if this is an Achilles? He probably shouldn't have played if he was banged up. It actually turned out not to be an Achilles. It was a ankle injury that is a broken fibula, the 2 bones in your leg, fibula being one of them, tibia being the other. So he's done for the year. The one thing you can't complain about is what was this goal line formation that saw a 165-pound player, Tank Dell, in the pile blocking for Dameon Pierce on a 2-yard run. So that formation probably got to go. Like, you got bigger, better players to get in there and block than Tank Dell, right? So you can complain about that, but honestly, it really was more just coincidence. So stinks, man. Tank Dell was awesome. Here's what we're going to see now probably is that with Tank Dell gone, we'll probably just see what we saw before, which was Noah Brown and Robert Woods picking up those other snaps. Nico Collins obviously still is a split end, but Noah Brown is the most interesting one for me because he was going off. He was going crazy. So Noah Brown is definitely a pickup this week for sure with Tank Dell done for the year. We did see C.J. Stroud leave the game briefly. He had concussion symptoms after a QB sneak, got popped. This is the second time that's happened, so maybe just use Dameon Pierce at the goal for those short yardage plays. I don't know, right? But yes, don't like to see star players like C.J. Stroud, getting banged up. Clinton says, I feel you guys with Juwan, but had to take a shot on the bye week. Wonder where Ertz will end up. Eagles seem to make the most sense. I got a video up on this one, but the three teams I was thinking about were the Eagles, obviously make a ton of sense. The Ravens, obviously a ton of sense. They lost Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely, we like him, but, Zach Ertz is Zach Ertz, right? He's been one of the best tight ends in the league for a decade now. The dark horse team was that I think is shouldn't rule out is the Dallas Cowboys, right? Again, there's a lot of nuance to it because Eagles fans still love Zach Ertz, but they would be pissed if he went to the Cowboys, right? The Eagles and Cowboys obviously hate each other, but he wants to compete. He, obviously wants to get paid some money, and he wants to have a starting job somewhere. So he probably cares about his legacy to some degree. That's the one rub with the Eagles is like Dallas Goedert's a starting tight end. So he would be competing in the slot for snaps with Quez Watkins. And Dallas Goedert, when they asked him about Ertz, he didn't seem super enthusiastic. Like sometimes you see these players and they're like, yeah, come back. Like, let's go. Dallas Goedert was like, yeah, weird to see that happen. I hope the best for him. It wasn't like, come on home, dude. You see a lot of these guys are like, come back home. Like Dallas Goedert didn't say that. So the dark horse for me is the Cowboys as a team that there were rumors that they tried to trade for Zach Ertz before the deadline, couldn't get a deal done, and now they don't have to give up anything as far as trade compensation. They just have to pay him and bring him in. And, Jake Ferguson's fine, but they like using Peyton Hendershot. Early in the year, Peyton Hendershot used a lot of slots from the snap. Snaps from the slot. There's a lot of possibility that they bring in Zach Ertz and they run him out of the slot the way they use Peyton Hendershot. I mean, if this team's competing now, that's not crazy at all. I think that would be a great idea for the Dallas Cowboys. So it would hurt for Jake Ferguson, and neither of them would probably be fantasy relevant because they'd split the targets to some degree. But for a team trying to win now, Zach Ertz is the guy you want to have around, right? So just to wrap up the Texans, you can get back on track here. Brevin Jordan played the Dalton Schultz role, 51 snaps. So if Schultz is out, Brevin Jordan's the guy, but the schedule is so bad for this team. It goes Titans, Browns, Titans. Bad for the run game, bad for the tight end. So, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to really roll out Brevin Jordan against the top two defenses versus the tight ends? It's not the way to roll. So, and then Devin Singletary played 31 snaps. Dameon Pierce played 26. They kind of reverted back to what we saw earlier this year, where Dameon Pierce got more run work, Devin Singletary got more pass work. That'll probably be the way it is moving forward. Dameon Pierce at least clawed back a good part of his job in the run game. So that schedule is so terrible for not only running, but the Titans. They play the Titans, Browns, Titans. The Titans are top 3 team in DVOA versus the run, and they are the number 1 team in preventing running backs from catching passes. They've allowed the fewest receptions to the running backs across the board, across the league this year. So it's just really bad matchups across the board. I would try not to start a Texans tight end or Texans running back in your fantasy playoffs. I do not trust them. If Dalton Schultz came back today and was fully healthy, I would not trust him. I wrote an article 2 weeks ago. Dalton Schultz is coming off a monster game. I wrote an article that said drop Dalton Schultz. He's a landmine. You want your opponents to pick up Dalton Schultz and start him against you in the playoffs. That's what you want to do. I'm serious. The Cleveland Browns especially have been absurd against the tight ends. They've let up almost half. The second closest team is the Patriots, who have let up like just over 400 yards to the tight end. The Browns have let up like 200 yards to the tight end. So don't start tight ends against the Browns. Just don't do it. Next team, Indianapolis Colts. This is another one where you feel the pain when Alec Pierce plays 70 snaps out of 71, and Michael Pittman plays 68 out of 71. But they got all these tight ends and running backs and even a fullback they mix in. That Josh Downs only plays 48, right? He runs fewer routes than the other guys, and he makes up for it sometimes with targets. But sometimes you get a week like this where he gets 5. And if he were a full-time player, like Chris Godwin, where Mike Evans plays on one side and Godwin plays on the other, and then he goes into the slot for 3 wide receiver sets, but he still plays the whole game. Josh Downs, I think that's a future for him. In Dynasty, I want him. In redraft, he scares me because of that. So Michael Pittman, we can definitely trust, right? Alec Pierce, we can't trust. I want to trust Josh Downs. I would love for that to flip where Downs is playing more and Pierce is playing less, but Pierce is a better blocker than Josh Downs. So it is going to be a little tough to trust Josh Downs as much as I hate to say it. You can definitely trust Pittman, though. Nobody plays more snaps in the entire league. He plays on the season, he's played 98% of snaps. Michael Pittman's locked in. For tight end, this is how ugly it's been. Coming into this week, the target leader for this team over the last 7 weeks was Will Mallory with 7 targets. So already didn't like that. Here's how they broke down the routes run for the tight ends in Indianapolis this week. The leader in routes run, there were 47 dropbacks for this team. The leader in routes run was Will Mallory with 13. 13 of 47 led this team. Kylan Granson ran 12. Andrew Ogletree ran 12. Mo Alley Cox also ran 12 routes. So they just took all the possible tight end routes and just said everyone gets a few, which is awful for fantasy football. I'd rather start Noah Gray than any tight end on this team. And Jelani Woods probably isn't coming back, so it's probably not going to get better at any point soon. So you cannot trust any Colts tight ends. If all the Colts tight ends were combined into one player for fantasy, I still wouldn't rank that player top 10. So don't worry about it. Guy you can trust as long as Jonathan Taylor's out, Zach Moss. Of 71 snaps, he played 67. Whole game, bro. Zach Moss is dialed in. So wheels up there. If you added him off waivers, smart. So get him in there. 67 or 71, it doesn't get better than that. Not even Christian McCaffrey has 3 games, I think, where he played virtually every snap, but that's as good as it gets, baby. So lock him in. Jacksonville Jaguars play tonight, so we got no data there. Kansas City Chiefs, 68 snaps. Rashee Rice led with 47 snaps of 68, though. So just let the kid play the whole game at this point. Come on, dude. It's driving me nuts. Obviously, we got to take what we can get, right? But 47 or 68, it's not ideal. And he ran 27 of a possible 39 routes. If this was Michael Pittman, he would have played 68 snaps, and he would have ran 38 of 39 routes or something like that. And he would have got 17 targets. He got 16 targets this week. Rashee Rice, they still want to mix and match. Rice played 47. Sky Moore played 45. Justin Watson played 41. MVS played 33. Kadarius Toney played 12. Richie James played a little bit. I'm done with Kadarius Toney. I'm done with Richie James. If you want to rotate 4 guys, that's fine. But Rashee Rice has earned it. Let the man eat. Let's go. Lean on him. Travis Kelce played 60 of 68 snaps. Travis Kelce ran 38 of 39 routes. That's what we would expect star players to do. So they're not treating Rashee Rice like a star player, even though he's their best wide receiver, and it's obvious, right? He ran 27 and Kelce ran 38. So I don't know, man. You can't move him way up because of that, but I'm starting him in most spots. At least I can trust him over Jaden Reed, over Josh Downs, because at least he's leading his team in routes and targets. He's leading the wide receivers, but he's still the second fiddle to Kelce. So I don't know. Free Rashee Rice. Let's get it going. Get the hashtag trending on Twitter. Free Rashee Rice. Isaiah Pacheco, 48 snaps of 68. Isaiah Pacheco, the running back, played more snaps than Rashee Rice by 1, but still. I don't know. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, not really involved. Jerick McKinnon banged up. So there you go. Las Vegas Raiders, next team, alphabetical order. And again, we're going to have the timestamps in there. So if you missed them, you just joined us now, you missed, you can go back after and check out whatever teams. We'll get those loaded up. Adam Bernard is an amazing producer behind the glass, so he'll be able to take care of all that for us. Las Vegas Raiders, bye week. Now we're into the last teams, the last territory. Los Angeles Chargers, 61 snaps. Keenan Allen, 54-61, 37 of 38 routes. That's what I'm talking about. Star treatment. You got 39 routes for the Chiefs. Rashee Rice runs 27. If that was Keenan Allen, he's running every route like he did this week. 9 targets. Trust him with my life. Until Josh Palmer gets back, Quentin Johnson is your next best bet. He ran 30 of 38 routes, so I guess more like the Rashee Rice treatment. But, you're not going to start Jalen Guyton. You're not going to start Alex Erickson. So there you go. I guess you could try throwing QJ in there. More of a DFS play. I don't really trust him, but he's the next best bet. We talked about Gerald Everett. I told everybody to be very careful with this player. He never plays the full snaps. 39 of 61 snaps this week. Only 22 of 38 routes. Donald Parham played 20. That's been the case for Everett since he came to the team. He's never played more than 80% of the snaps. In 27 games now, he's only played more than 70% of the snaps 3 times. He's just not a full-time player, Gerald Everett isn't. This team, if you were able to combine these guys, if you could combine Everett and Donald Parham and Stone Smart into one tight end, I would start that tight end in fantasy football because that tight end got 10 targets this week. But Gerald Everett got 5, and Donald Parham got 4, and Stone Smart got 1. So it's too much of a split. I'll never trust Gerald Everett, unfortunately. Even with all the wide receiver injuries going back to the last year, this year just doesn't play enough. So, oh well. Austin Eckler, hearing a lot of complaints about him. Obviously, we saw this coming. Howard Bender tried to warn everyone. He said, Joe Lombardi loves throwing to the running back. That's been the case when he was with the Saints. It was the case with the Chargers. It was the case with the Lions, where last time he called played, he threw over 150 passes to the running backs combined. Kellen Moore does not like it as much, so Austin Eckler's PPR points per week are way down, and especially his PPR points from receiving are down. So, here's the thing, though. Austin Eckler, you got to start him because there's not 24 running backs better in fantasy than Austin Eckler. There's definitely not 36, and most of our leagues are 2 running backs and a flex. So Austin Eckler, you still start him. Trade deadlines are pretty much over, but you just got to take what you can get, right? He played 35 snaps, and Josh Kelly played 26, but Eckler always gets more carries, always runs more routes. So at least he got that going on. Next team, Los Angeles Rams. Ani Coopy's Rams. Shout out Ani Coop. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua played. They're the full-time guys, but Puka Nacua left with a rib injury in the second quarter, came back. They called it a rib. They called it a shoulder. Probably what it is like in between the ribs, the cartilage gets damaged, and it hurts like heck. I've had that happen before, and it is awful, dude. It's as bad as a broken rib, to be honest. You can't sleep. If you cough or sneeze, it feels like your life is over. But he came back and played through that and played well. So Kupp, Nacua, I trust those guys. 8 targets, 7 targets. The rest of these guys, Demarcus Robinson, Ben Skowronek, Tutu Atwell, they all rotated. Can't use any of those guys. If Puka Nacua is out, the guy that picked up the snaps when he was gone was actually Ben Skowronek. So maybe that'll be the case. It's a guessing game, but if he were to be out for an extended period, next week we're going to get an idea of what it looks like with him out. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, but I don't know. It's hard to trust any of those guys, man. Tutu Atwell, no. Demarcus Robinson, no way. Tyler Higbee left the game with a concussion. We weren't using Tyler Higbee in fantasy anyway, only in very deep leagues. So, it's not like you're going to use Hunter Long if he's out, or Davis Allen, the rookie. So don't worry about those guys. Kyron Williams, 59 of 63 snaps. So Kyron Williams, thank goodness for him. We're locking him in. Kyron Williams, good player. Miami Dolphins, next team. Blowout win, saw a lot of the backups. So we saw a lot of Cedric Wilson, Braxton Berrios, River Craycraft. That's just what happens when blowouts. Crazy that Tyreek Hill did what he did on only 18 routes, right? Like some of these guys, explosive players, Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane, they don't need a lot of touches to deliver fantasy points. So I'm starting Raheem Mostert. I'm starting Devon Achane wherever I have him. I'm not starting Jeff Wilson. So what you saw is Mostert and Achane started and split the work early. In the second half, they basically just gave the garbage time work to Achane and Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson played most of the fourth quarter. So Mostert and Achane start them both. Easy enough. Durham Smythe, useless. So don't worry about the tight end here. Minnesota Vikings are on bye. New England Patriots this week. A lot of changes. Bailey Zappi came out. No Pop Douglas. No Kendrick Bourne. No Kayshon Boutte. So what we saw was Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Parker, Tyquan Thornton as the guys. Devontae Parker obviously got 9 targets, but man, no points. 6-0 game. Gross, dude. So, yeah, what are you going to do? And the one guy we could count on from this team, Ramondre Stevenson, got taken down with that hip drop tackle. For a while, the backpack tackle, the hip drop tackle, very controversial tackle. For a while, I thought there's no way to fix this, but it was pointed out to me by a good friend of the show, Dustin Ludke, that in rugby, they actually did make that illegal in a couple leagues out there, in New Zealand and a few places. And it's like the face mask. For a while, face mask was a very viable play, and then they made it illegal, and they teach you from a young age, don't do this. Horse collar was another one where we sat there and said, how are you going to make this illegal? And then they did, and now they teach you at a young age not to do it, and now it's in your brain not to do it. So that's what they have to do with this play. I'm on board now. No hip drop tackle, and now we got to go back and start at a young age. It's going to take once they make it illegal. There are going to be tons of flags for this for the first couple games, for the first year, maybe a couple of years, but eventually it will be taken out of the game, and it will be a better game for it because it is responsible for a good number of the injuries, and I've seen it removed from rugby. So now I've changed my tune. I'm on board with removing the hip drop tackle if possible, and it's not just because I have Patriot stuff all over my office, and I'm wearing a Boston Red Sox sweatshirt. It's this is the play itself. Before this week, I had already made that change, and again, like I'm not rooting for the Patriots to win this year. I want them to lose. So with him out, Zeke Elliott is probably going to be a top waiver ad, and he probably should be because he probably missed multiple games with this. I don't know for sure. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Britt Flynn usually has a good update on that. So make sure you stay tuned after this show with Britt Splits. If there's no update, there's no update. But if there is an update, Britt is always on top of that stuff. So if there is one, she'll get it to you. But yeah, so you got to add Zeke. Mike Gesicki only played 5 snaps this week. So what a crazy bad signing that has been. And his agent should be absolutely fired because he was complaining. He could have gone to a lot of different spots, ended up here. Oof, gross. New Orleans Saints, 67 snaps. Basically, A.T. Perry, the rookie, is in the Michael Thomas role with Rashid Shaheed out. Lynn Bowden, right, the guy that was drafted by the Raiders, traded before he even played to the Dolphins, now found his way to the Saints with the neck tat. Not difficult to miss Lynn Bowden if you see him out there. He played the Shaheed role, and then Chris Olave played his own role. So that's how they're going to handle it as long as Shaheed and Michael Thomas are out. Juwan Johnson disappointed us, and here's why. Because they leaned heavily into the run game, which saw Foster Moreau play 40 snaps. He only ran 9 routes, but he played 40 snaps. Juwan Johnson played 38 snaps. He ran 19 routes, but that was 19 to 31. And then Taysom Hill played 28 snaps on the game. He only ran 8 routes, though, because he had a lot of the QB Wildcat snaps. So, Juwan Johnson, not a full-time player, even with all these guys out. So, can't trust Juwan. We're using him for 1 week anyway. Taysom Hill, of course, you saw how it goes with him. It can get pretty dicey, and he's a guy that I don't trust for 3 straight weeks. For a 1-week fill-in, sure, but you saw how close it came. The Alvin Kamara touchdown had to be overturned for him to score. Alvin Kamara should have had 3 touchdowns. One of them was overturned, and then they gave it to Taysom Hill. So, and again, you need a positive game script. You need the Saints to be winning to get Taysom Hill down to the goal line. So, again, if you're completely struggling at tight end, sure, throw him in there. Who cares? But, it's just hard to trust this guy, man. His role is not – in PPR, you can't trust him the way you do guys like Laporta and Kincaid and Trey McBride that get consistent targets because Taysom Hill got 2 targets. You have to bank on him getting that touchdown. So some weeks it happens. Some weeks he scores 0.4 fantasy points, which he has done earlier this year. Just know that that's within the range of outcomes. But the people that like this player don't care about that. They start him anyway. So do what you got to do. Alvin Kamara played great, scored multiple touchdowns, probably should have scored 3. So there you go. Let's take a quick look. We had Kamara in our FFPC lineup. So let's take a quick look at how the lineup did this week. Go over to myffpc.com, use promo code Coop. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. We drafted this team with Colby Conway. The way it works is you go in and you make a lineup. You can't use 2 players from the same team. So that's the only rub. But there's no salaries. There's no, there's no draft. There's none of that stuff. You just get in there, pick the best matchups, and the one problem you have is you got to choose this guy or the other. A couple times this year, we've been very close to winning, but we would pick like Austin Eckler and someone else would pick Keenan Allen, and that would be the big difference maker. So here, we're in the mix, man. We're in 8th out of 30. We've got another player still to go. The winner gets $500. This is $35 30-person entry. Winner gets $500. Second and third each get $100. Second gets $200. Third and fourth each get $100. And then if you come in 5th, then you just get another entry, a $35 entry. So, with a couple of these teams already having guys gone, we're looking okay. The rub is, right, so the top team has 230. We're not going to look at them. They don't have anyone left. The rub here is that we look at the team that we're going up against here that's in second. We both have a kicker left, and we're probably both using McManus. Here's my thought process on this. I'm not going to – sometimes we switch our Monday night guy in desperation. I'm not going to switch it because I looked at a couple of these other teams, and they also have kickers going. So this guy here, Jaden, and also Duval, Docs, he's looking at this other guy. They both have one kicker left, and this guy, Duval, is probably going to switch his to the other kicker to Evan McPherson, hoping that McPherson outscores the other guy and he can kind of sneak ahead, right? So I'm thinking these other guys are going to try and get all tricky and make that move. I'm just going to start the kicker that I think is the better option. So I'm just going to leave McPherson in, hoping that these guys mess up and I can sneak up into the top 5. I mean, to get in top 5, we just need McPherson to do a little something because we'll pass Favre and Puggerman and Breesman. So I'm feeling good about it. I think we're going to finish in the money this week, folks. We started C.J. Stroud, pretty good. Rashad White, 19 points. Ramondre Stevenson is the one that killed us because he got hurt. He was playing really well, getting a ton of touches, got 40 yards. He got hurt, and as he got his ankle rolled up on, he fumbled the football. So then he lost 2 more points there. So just a killer situation for Ramondre Stevenson that hurt our team. Amon-Ra, he scored the touchdown that bailed him out, but, we had Tyreek Hill who went off. Kelsey did fine. Trey McBride or Sam Laporta really did it for us. Alvin Kamara went off. A.J. Brown, awesome. Brandon Ayuk, awesome. Michael Pittman, awesome. Defense got 15 points. So good week here for us, man. I'm feeling pretty good about it. If you think you should do better, get in there, use promo code Coop. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more, and it's a lot of fun, dude. It's a lot of fun, and the playoff version is even better because, you make a playoff team that goes through all the playoff weeks, and you can only pick one guy from each team. So there's so much more strategy. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. So get set up over there. Promo code Coop at myffpc.com. First-time depositors that give you 25, you deposit 35 or more. All right, let's get that out of here, off the screen, Adam Bernard, and let's get back to work here. We got to rapid fire through these teams because I wasted so much time talking about nonsense here. New Orleans Saints we talked about. New York Giants on bye. New York Jets. They said they wanted to get more carries for Dalvin Cook, mix him in more. He fumbled. So, oops, right? Breece Hall still played 46 snaps, got most of the work in all phases. Maybe they do want to mix Dalvin Cook in. It would make a lot of sense for this team if they're not competing and they're out to not put a ton of carries and touches on Breece Hall, right? So I would do that if I were them. It's not good for fantasy, but for real life perspective, you want to keep these guys from getting injured. You want to keep them fresh. So I would rotate as much as possible. Garrett Wilson's the only guy you can trust for fantasy. And maybe Jets defense in the right matchups, but that's it. If trust is the goal here, it's Garrett Wilson, it's maybe Breece Hall, and it's the defense. That's it. Eagles, same situation. We know who the players are. Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, bing, boom, trust them. And then Dallas Goedert, when he gets back, you use him. Quez Watkins took his job back, which puts Alameda Zacchaeus, Julio Jones on the back burner. What are you going to do there? We're not going to use any of the tight ends until Dallas Goedert gets back. If Goddard's out again this week, maybe Alberto is a dart throw, but what are you going to do? Here's a real interesting one from the Eagles this week is that because this team was 10-1, we never really seen them in a negative game script. In the negative game script, Kenneth Gainwell quietly played more snaps than DeAndre Swift. He played 39 to 30, 32 routes run to 19. So even though Swift is a starter, and we're probably going to trust him in most matchups, and the schedule is good for the Eagles, it goes, the Cowboys game is tough, then it goes Seattle, Giants, Cardinals, Giants. So Swift should be fine. Just know in negative game scripts, they do go to Gainwell a little bit. Steelers, 61 snaps. Yikes, quarterback is hurt, and he will be out for this week already, they're saying at the very least, probably more than that. So this team kind of had playoff hopes at 7-4. Now they're 7-5, using a backup quarterback. Pretty rough. Najee and Jalen Warren, they split again. If you were comfortable using guys that we know are going to split, then keep using them. If you'd rather go for upside, then you might have to do that. And then Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Allen Robinson, Freiermuth all played full snap shares. So it's just a matter of playing matchups with those guys. But Deontay Johnson historically is the guy that gets the most targets. So there you go. San Francisco is easy. It's Brandon Ayuk. It's Deebo Samuel. It's George Kittle. It's Christian McCaffrey. It's Brock Purdy. You can start them all. This team's awesome. And they use a fullback, so you don't have to worry about the third wide receiver. It's just those guys. Nice and easy for fantasy football. Next team, Seattle Seahawks. Charbonnet dominated the carries at least. So as long as Kenneth Walker's out, we can count on him. 42 of 69 snaps. Very nice. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett played the whole game. Jackson Smith and Jigba is still in that Josh Downs, Jaden Reed, part-time third fiddle role. So again, it depends how deep your league is, whether or not you need to use those guys in fantasy playoffs. Just know that those other guys, Metcalf and Lockett, played 60-plus snaps. He played 46. He did get 11 targets. The matchup was good for the slot, but just keep that in mind. Not a full-time player just yet. We like these guys in Dynasty. I think you can get a discount to some degree on JSN, Josh Downs, Jaden Reed. I'm still doing that, but in redraft, you got to be very careful with these players. I obviously like them better than other guys that aren't getting targeted at all, but just be careful. The possibility is there. We saw it with Reed and Downs this week, that it's possible that you get 11 targets one week like JSN did. Next week you get 5. So be very careful there. Tight ends here, not trusting them. If you had to pick one, Noah Fant only ran 25 of 43 routes though, so ain't. Tampa Bay, can we get this done before Blitz comes up after this? We're getting close. Only a couple minutes left. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. K-Dot ran 30 of 32 routes, just didn't get targeted because it was all Mike Evans. And that's what happens when you're the third fiddle. Sometimes it's Mike Evans, sometimes it's Chris Godwin. K-Dot has had a couple games that are good, but you got to know that every once in a while it's just going to be the Mike Evans show. The future Hall of Famer Mike Evans, there is no debate. He needed 150 yards to go over 1,000 in the season. He got 162. That's 10 seasons in the league, 10,000-yard seasons. His career stats are virtually the same as Calvin Johnson. This is a Hall of Fame player if he retires today. Any debates you see out there are just people trying to get clicks or be controversial or say or suggest that, I don't appreciate it. Mike Evans is a Hall of Fame player. End of story. And I don't want to bash on anybody that says he's not. Everyone's allowed to have takes, right? I have bad takes all the time. So everyone can say whatever they want. But I'm saying that this is a Hall of Fame player. Rashad White, fantasy football-wise, 54 of 62 snaps. Yeah, buddy. We'll take that. Get him in there where you got him. Tennessee Titans, DeAndre Hopkins had kind of been wishy-washy lately in his usage, not running all the routes, not playing all the snaps. Hey, this week, 37 routes run out of 40, 11 targets, even got a carry. DeAndre Hopkins looked good this week. He looked involved, right? Treylon Burks, first game back, only 10 snaps, not involved. Can't trust that guy. Can't trust Nick Westbrook-Ikine. Can't trust Chris Moore. You can use Hopkins. You can use Derrick Henry. Tajay Spears, in certain situations, blowouts gets carries, or if they're playing from behind, gets some targets, but hard to trust him. Chickaconko, another one where, yes, he's got some targets. People are going to suggest that this guy is trustworthy, but only ran 26 of 40 routes. Don't like the Josh Wiley and Trevor Wesco usage. So, even though I'm a Chig fan and I want to see him do well, I would love to see him play more. More about that on Tuesday with my tight end article write-up. Washington Commanders, last game here, it was a blowout. So what are you going to do? Terry McLaurin, no catches. Logan Thomas, no catches, right? Like just ugly game. You saw Byron Pringle, all these guys playing. So, and again, we said it could happen. Brian Robinson, unfortunately got banged up, but Antonio Gibson probably would have played more in this blowout anyway because they were passing so much. So Antonio Gibson is going to be a waiver ad for sure. And that's going to be it. Guys, today I want you to do 2 things. Hang tight. And well, I'm going to say 3 things. First, like and subscribe to the channel. Second, hang tight for Blitz coming up next. And third, I've got a show today on this YouTube channel that I've wanted to be on for a while because I haven't opened a pack of cards in like forever. In fact, I got a little antsy. I bought 2 packs. I opened one on Sunday on the morning show, and it was awesome. And now I'm fired up for Rip and Riff tonight with our guys, Jared Moore and Adam Bernard. It's going to be a blast. We're opening football cards. So we're going to record tonight. It's going to air on coming up in a couple weeks, but I'm really excited for that. So make sure you check out Rip and Riff on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube channel. Check out some of those episodes and just know I'm going to be ripping football cards and talking about that on there with those fellas. So thank you guys for joining me today. Good luck in your fantasy playoff championship. Stay tuned on this channel right now. Blitz coming up. Let's go.